Today is 896. Today's topic is an energy sector roadmap to net zero emissions in Indonesia. Electrification to reduce oil imports. Indonesian transport sector accounts for 1/3 of final energy consumption and around 40% of CO2 emissions for final energy consumption. Energy consumption for transport has surged by 70% over since 2010 to around 2,150 PJ. Oil supplied 100% of this demand in 2010, but its share shrunk to below 90% in 2021 as biofuel blending increased. Close to 90% of CO2 emission, 120 megaton CO2 in the transport sector, as well as 90% of oil demand from road transport. The 11 million cars on Indonesian roads today account for slightly more than 35 megaton CO2 emissions, while trucks emit over 50 megaton CO2, shipping and aviation each account for about 5% of total transport sector energy demand and emit a combined total of almost 15 megaton CO2. Activity drivers are more than 50% increase in economic output over the last decade drove large increases in demand for transport services, notably for road transport. Passenger road transport activity, measured in passenger kilometers, increased by almost 50% over the decade. Freight activity measured in ton kilometers increased 70%. In the APS, total road passenger transport PKM increases nearly 75% on 2021 levels by 2030 and triples by 2060. By 2060, the average Indonesian travels 14,000 kilometers domestically per year, up from 5,500 kilometers in 2021. Increasing economic output goes hand in hand with rising transport needs for industrial, commercial, and agricultural goods. Freight transport increases by around 50% by 2030 and more than triples by 2060. Motorbikes are the main transport mode for Indonesia today, at 3,325 motorbikes per 1,000 inhabitants. The ownership rate is well above the 160 motorbikes per 1,000 inhabitants in India, and more than triple the global average of 93 per 1,000 people. Car ownership in Indonesia is about 40 cars per 100 inhabitants, a quarter the global average. Commuting in urban Jakarta. In the megacity of Jakarta, motorbikes are by far the most common mode of transport for communicating, accounting for 64% of daily trips. Sophie, Yandi, and Cigarette. More than 2/3 of daily commutes are for distances for less than 30 kilometers and 22% are under 10 kilometers. The prevalence of motorbikes and relatively short daily travel distances offer an attractive opportunity for Indonesian larger cities to shift to electromobility. The average home-to-work commuting distance of under 20 kilometers can be easily served with battery-powered 2 per 3-wheelers available in markets today. Electrifying Jakarta's motorbike fleet could be achieved at limited additional cost and would benefit residents with improved air quality. Electric motorbikes are much more energy efficient than those that burn gasoline and so would help to reduce CO2 emissions in the near term, even with Indonesia's coal-intensive electricity system. Maximizing the mitigation benefits of electromobility requires decarbonizing electricity generation. Commuting by made and distance in Jakarta. Community mode shared in Jakarta city. Motorbikes is most big shares, 64%. Next is bus, next is cars. And the commute distance is 10 to 30 kilometers is most shares. Motorbikes dominate communicated trips in Jakarta with typical distances that could easily be met by today's electric 2 per 3 wheels. In the APS, income growth spurs the preference for and the accessibility of car ownership over motorbikes, in line with trends observed in many emerging economies. Ownership of motorbikes and other 2-3-wheeler vehicles increases by almost 15% by 2030, but peaks just before 2040 and then begins to decline. By 2060, the total 2-3-wheeler stock is only around 35% larger than today. On the other hand, car ownership jumps to over 75 vehicles per 1,000 people in 2030 and 180 cars per 1,000 inhabitants in 2060, multiplying the total stocks of passenger cars more than fivefold. Evolution of key activity metrics for selected road transport modes in Indonesia in the announced pledge scenario 2010-2060, GDP per household and very bigger and bigger, and passenger kilometers this, and the ton kilometers this, and the passenger cars and 2-3-wheelers and heavy trucks, all kinds of vehicles and larger. Income growth drives significant changes in the structure and scale of transport demand, with more than fivefold increase in the number of cars by 2060. Rail transport needs rise as Indonesian economic output expands and markets integrate further across provinces and internationally. Use of heavy trucks triples by 2060 compared to the current level, with activity concentrated in the existing economic center of Java and Sumatra, but also increasing markedly in Kalimantan as the region develops rapidly, spurred by the move of national capital to East Kalimantan. Growth of the road freight transport fleet and average distances traveled nonetheless are constrained by Indonesia's archipelago geography, with shipping and port infrastructure playing a major in the integration of markets across Indonesia and internationally. Average distance traveled for passenger cars increases 10% by the end of this decade, and almost 15% for 2-3-wheelers in the APS. This increase in mileage reflects an increase in wealth and urban expansion. As income level rise, people purchase newer vehicles that are driven more compared to older ones. However, in the APS, total PKM are nearly 15% lower by 2060 than in the steppes due to a modal shift to public transport. Consistent with Indonesia's positions as an emerging economy, the APS did not assume substantial politics to reduce flying. Aviation activity levels are similar in both the steppes and the IPS. Additionally, in line with Indonesian expected economic growth rate, TKM activity increases 1.5 times by 2030 and more than triples by 2060 in both scenarios. Almost 40 million passengers took domestic flight in Indonesia in 2021. Increasing connectivity of Indonesian islands and rising average incomes drive a quadrupling of total aviation activity to 230 billion PKM by 2030, increasing to more than 450 billion PKM by 2060. In the APS 9 times today's level of 50 billion PKM. Shipping accounts for around 90% of Indonesia's internationally traded goods, with around 700 megaton of cargo volume in 2021. Despite being archipelago, growth in domestic shipping activity has been relatively low. Prioritizing sea over land transport could reduce transportation energy demand and yield economic benefits. And that's all. Thank you.